Alright, I figured I'd do a video on how I ram up sand molds with the identical pattern in it a couple of times. And I've been doing this bottle opener recently, so I'm going to show you guys how I do that. You can do this with a flat back pattern, and you can do this even with like an irregular parting line. And it works pretty well. Like I could even probably replicate like a sand spoon or something in here. But what I've done is I carved out this bottle opener design in wood, and then I cast one in cast iron with what I wanted on. You know, I'll usually like change the lettering. This one's in cast iron. It says Maine. That's where I'm from. So these have been pretty popular around Christmas for a bottle opener. So I'm going to make two of these in one mold using one pattern at the same time. I'm not going to go into detail about completely ramming up a mold. You should know what a flask is. You should know its two parts. You should know what this is. You should know a peen end, a rammer. You should be a little familiar with these sand spoons, although if there's enough attention about this video, I might make some more on how to use some of these tools. I'm not a seasoned expert, but I have learned a lot from my father and from books that I've read and from other things. So let's go ahead and fill this up. So I've got this aluminum flask right here, and we're not even going to put the pattern in the flask. We're actually just going to ram up a neutral flask, but it's important how you ram it up. You want it to be kind of soft when we ram it up, and I'll show you why. So we're just going to start off. I use Petrobond sand, and for you new guys, you have Petrobond sand that's like Georgia clay colored. Once you've used your sand for a very long time, it'll be black as night, and that's what you're going to see me using here. But it's all been molded in my molding machine recently, like 2 minutes ago. So I used fresh mold sand. You'll see some guys using mold sand just where it's touching the pattern. I recommend using mold sand through the entire flask, because you go to cut a sprue in and it hits one of those pieces of charred sand, and then you have washout and you have porosity in the part. Let's ram this thing up. Alright, so I'm just going to get some. I'm not even putting facing sand in this. And the way these aluminum flasks are made, I don't need to worry about putting a foot plate underneath yet. So I kind of filled up the mold pretty good right there. This is the bottom half, technically, correct? So I'm just going to peen the sides. Nothing crazy. And then I'll use my hands to kind of push in some of that center sand, and then I'll put some more on there. That's lightly packing it, obviously, correct? We're not doing that very hard, so I'm going to strike it off right there. All right. Now I do need a flip plate. So we're going to take this half, we're going to stand it straight up like this. It won't fall out of there going that way. We don't want to rest it on its back without this. All right. A little talc. Line this up right. We're going to put our top half, and we're going to ram it in a very similar fashion. A little bit tighter, but not by much. I don't use facing sand for this pattern. This is pretty coarse. I like it to be that way. It doesn't need facing sand. It's not that detailed. Same idea. We're going to peen the edges in first. However, this top half, we do ram it ever so lightly in the middle, just a little bit with a rammer. The reason we're ramming it a little bit is because when we're flipping this piece over and over again, we do not want it to fall out. Now, this is where it gets kind of interesting, and this is how this works. Because of the way this pattern is shaped and the way I'm going to put it in my flask, I'm going to make two rises right here going this way. I'm just going to use my hands. You see how high up over the flask it is. You'd think, oh, you're going to need to strike all that off eventually. You'll see. So we just kind of hand pack it like this. And there we go. So we're going to separate the mold. And I don't need to tap the sides or anything. It'll just separate like this. Nice, right? Set that down. Okay, now we're going to take our pattern. Just make sure there's no loose down there for now. There's enough talc powder here. We don't need to talc up our pattern here. We're just going to set it right on it. I'm going to put one here and one here. So I'm going to put this one here first. This is for making fillets on patterns. I've got quite a few of these, and all different circumferences. These things work great for everything around here. So here's how I do this. because we didn't pack this too tight, this pattern just wants to sink in. If you do pack this too tight, what happens is as you push this in, the sand around it actually will start to concave with it, and then that will leave a lot of like extra that you have to grind off, of course, because it won't match up to your top half. There's a little forgiveness in all this, and I'll show you why. That's another great reason to have a cast iron pattern. So I'm going to put that in. What I'm doing right now is I'm just pushing it in any place where it went beyond it. I'm bringing it right to that parting line with my fingertips. Okay, boom. Now we're just going to take the top half, set it right on. Same way. We're going to use our rammer, and that's this first bulge right here. Watch this. I'm not going to go nuts, but watch. Take it apart, and you'll notice, you can see it definitely did like a split pattern. Because this is cast iron, I use a land earth magnet, so we're just going to tap this just a little bit, wrap it a little. Doesn't take much for this. Set our magnet on there. Don't hold your magnet as you put it down on, it'll rip it out and tear sand. Let go of the magnet, let it stick to it. Now we'll lift it. Just like that. Alright, second time we're going to put it in, we're going to put it on this side. I've learned this is the best gating. Once again, push that sand down to meet that parting line good. Now we put it together carefully. The constant lifting of the top half and setting it down is why you wanted to pack it just a little bit tighter. You don't want it to just fall and everything. Now you know what we're going to do with this second part here. Just this side. Don't go over here. You don't want to squish that cavity at all. Stay on this side. And you don't have to go nuts. Just hit it good. All right. Now we're there. We're going to strike the whole thing. You know, when you strike too, you can pull straight across like this, and sometimes I do. But it helps if you drag it across as you do this. Think of taking a steak knife. You can't push a steak knife straight through a steak. You got to saw it. Sometimes taking your strike bar and kind of raking it as you go across keeps it from leaving big voids, because sometimes you can tear the sand as you go to strike. Well, at least with Petrobond. Just going to hit all the loose sand. All right. Now, I know where my two patterns are. They're right about here. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and carve my gates now. I got my tapered sprue cutter. I like to feed from the middle. So I'm going to kind of depth gauge it with my fingers. Put that in, pull that out, sling it in my box. It's empty. Now I need 3 vents for this particular mold. Petrobond does not allow air to flow through very well, especially with something sluggish like brass, which is what we're making this out of. So we want plenty of escapes for air so the brass wants to flow quickly. And that is all of them right there. Now you could have used a much smaller sprue cutter for those. I just don't want to waste time for the video. Now for a little spoon work. I don't have to do anything for these 3 vents. This is our feeder right here, so we're going to take this burr spoon. I have a good selection of Burr, Monk, and Dobson, and all nice and vintage. But one of the things you want, these, they need to be polished on the back side. They're usually rough finished on this side, polished on this side, rough finished. And you can see that on quite a few of these. So this spade right here is great for carving this, and there's other ways of doing this. This is just how I do it. Make sure that you can spin this freely in your fingers like this. See how well that works? And then I can just take my hands. Watch, I won't be able to do this on camera, of course, right? Oh, gosh, there we go. I let it go down in there. Some people like to scoop it out just a little bit like that. And then I'll take one of these radiuses and I'll smooth it out the rest of the way like this. You don't want any loose sand falling down in there. There we go. All right, get that done. Push all these edges with my fingers here. You know, if you use your fingers for the entire thing, it kind of works, but there's nothing better than a polished another surface. All right, we're going to take this apart now, and you can see we have 2 of the back sides, and we're going to wrap this a little. Magnet. We're going to lift it. Oh, little sand tore there. Sorry, I'm trying to go kind of quick for the video. So I'm going to use that spade again. I really like this one. This is one of my favorite. So in this pattern, I'll show you on the wooden one here. This small ring right here, if I don't vent it from both sides, it can't flow in from just one and work properly. And because of the width of this mold and setting 2, I need to vent it. So we carve a couple air vents, one from this side over to here, one from the tip. I only have to do one side of this tip. And then up here on this side, we go to this vent hole like this. And this vent hole. Always start at your pattern and drag towards the cut hole. Or you're not knocking too much sand. You can see my hands shaking from all the coffee I've had today. Alright. now our ingates here. So once again, I'm going to start, make sure you're careful with your hand. I'm going to start here, pull that one down. Make sure they're good and deep. You don't want these things freezing off early. Alright, now what we got to do, these aluminum flasks are tapered so I can flip it upside down and get all the sand to dump out of it. There we go. Alright. Now the other reason I like these is this smaller sphere fits right inside this. And I can really smooth out the sand. Remember, I'm not too worried about all of this. This is where air is to flow out. This is where metal's coming in. This is where we don't want any loose sand. Gently use my finger here. Sometimes it doesn't hurt to put a little extra talc on your finger as you do this, right? Don't push too hard. You don't want to tear sand as you're doing it. Really blow out this part. I just use my lungs. You can use a bellows. I think a bellows sometimes is too strong. I'll tell you, when you go to McDonald's too, get some of these straws in certain molds. Having McDonald's straws to... They work great, and they're free every time you go. The last thing we're going to do is I have my company logos, Sebago Foundry Works, like the stamp on the back side of these bottle openers. So I'm just going to take it, and I can see both these sides. I just push it in. I wiggle it a little bit to act as wrapping and pull it away. These letters pull really clean every time. That's that. Back up. I'm just going to make sure there's no loose sand. From that. Put the two halves together and you're done. And then you can, of course I put, on a piece this small, I just clamp the edges like this. And bring it outside, you get your plate right here. I always carry it on this at this point. And it's ready to pour. There you go.